fellow Tamers and Digi-Destined, it's Mike, AKA Synaku from Overground, and today I'm going to be making a quick video going over the first 1.5 deck that I built and the first 1.5 tournament that I was able to enter. So what you see in front of you is probably something that's pretty familiar to most of you at this point because we've all lived through the 1.0 format together. We've all kind of gone through that nightmarish hellscape that lasted for all of eternity until we finally got our hands on 1.5. But surprisingly, some of the cards that came out of 1.5 actually made Blue Omni a lot more powerful and a lot more consistent. And that is why I chose to kind of dust off the old deck and take it back into a tournament one more time. Now, I swore up and down that I would never touch Blue Omni again after the last official Bandai tournament, which I did finish 4th place in for the Canadian event, but I didn't make a video because I figured no one wanted to see another Blue Omni deck list. And yet here we are, not 3 days later, with a Blue Omni deck list. But it's different, and it's a bit more awesome, in my opinion, I think. So I'm just going to go over the changes real quick, and then we'll talk about my matchups tonight and kind of how those techs kind of came into play. So the first change you'll see is that we no longer play Omnimon. He can go burn in a fire for all I care. That Digi-Egg was terrible, and I never was able to proc its effect properly. But Demi-Vmon is actually really cool for reasons that we'll touch upon as we go through the rest of the list. Finally, we'll go on the rookies. The rookie lineup is generally exactly identical to pretty common standard Blue Omni deck lists. You've got the 4 Gabumon on play, you get to draw. You got the 4 Gomamon with the inherited ability to gain 1 memory and deletion. 4 of the 2-cost Elegmon. And normally, the last spot would be reserved for like the 2-cost Gomamon or any extra text if you want to play like the Source Strip Gabumon or the Source Memory Gain Gomamon, anything like that. But in this case, you know what? As you saw in my double box opening yesterday, I pulled 2 Vmon and I figured, you know what? Vmon has a home in Blue Omni that's actually really cool because he adds that kind of extra layer of aggression really early on because you can just throw him on top of an egg, bring him up, swing with him, and especially if he's on top of an Upamon, you can potentially draw one if your opponent has something without a source. And because it is jamming, it's just going to live. And then your opponent's kind of forced to waste an attack on killing the Vmon. And that's just a lot of value because that puts you ahead in the security race. And if they can't deal with that Vmon, that's just constant free attacks you get to get with this stupid thing. And then, you know, worst case scenario, if you need to evolve on top of it, you can. Now, quick glance, you'll see that we're not playing the X Vmon, and that's because this deck isn't super heavy like Rookie Rush or aggro focused in that respect. It's still leaning very heavily on our level 6s. So Vmon is just here as a kind of neat little additional tool of aggression, but is not built around him specifically. And especially since we only have the 2 copies available at our disposal, it wasn't really worth playing the X Vmon just for that cute little niche combo. Moving on to the champions are pretty much exactly identical to what you'd expect in a standard Omnimon list. We're still playing the 4 Gorillamon, still playing the 4 Grizzlymon, and still playing the 3 Garurumon. Now, the ultimates, that's where things change a little bit more. I'm going to start with the Bastamon right now. You can see that there's a little Monzimon head poking out, and that's because we only pulled 3 Bastamon out of the 2 boxes we've opened thus far. So we ended up playing 3 and 1 Monzimon just to complement that, and so I kind of lumped him into this category, but he pretty much serves the same purpose. We just wanted a new 2-cost evolution that's just a little bit stronger to potentially survive more security checks while also giving us the possibility of destroying more Digimon on them attacking us as well. And it's a little bit cheaper than other 3-cost evolutions, which is really, really nice. The 7-drop isn't necessarily too much of a hindrance, but having 8K in play is just, I think, worth its weight in gold for all intents and purposes. You'll see that we've kind of dropped the standard ultimate lineup here. Normally we would play something like the Weregurumon from the starter deck, or even the promo Weregurumon, where each case they get straight attack +1 under different triggers, one being your opponent has something without a source, and one being they have to have 8 cards in hand. Otherwise, we'd also be playing something like the Zudomon from set 1, which was the hard play draw 2, and if your opponent had something without a source, you get to gain 1 memory. I found that this wasn't as relevant now because the deck is actually actively going out of its way to play Tamers. And as you can see, we're actually playing 2 copies of Davis. 1, because we only pulled 2 copies of Davis, but 2, because Davis is an automatic conclusion in this deck now. It's an extra added layer of consistency, which is what Blue Omni desperately needed. Blue Omni had a lot of draw power, but it didn't necessarily have a lot of consistency in terms of hitting the right cards it needed at the right time. Now with Davis, comparable to the other memory gainer tamer we had prior to this, which was the Matt, it actually does something on play, and it actually adds way more value to the deck. So if you're unfamiliar with Davis, on play you get to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and you get to add a blue and green Digimon that you find there to your hand. Now in this case, we're not playing any green Digimon, so we're only digging for blues, but the fact that we get to look at our top 3 and pick from one of those to add to our hand, that adds a layer of redundancy and consistency, which cannot be ignored. And I think that that's very, very powerful. And that's going to tie into the next ultimate that we're going to talk to, which is Aerophiedramon. So again, Davis is kind of in here the inclusion to replace the Zunamon, because it's going to give us extra memory while also giving us additional search power. But the Aerophiedramon is actually very, very strong here because for being a 3-cost evolution, and because Davis always sets us to 3, if we have a champion in play, we can potentially just evolve into Aerophiedramon in the same turn and get his effect. And what his effect is that when digivolving, if we have a blue Tamer in play, we get to unsuspend one of our blue Digimon. Now, we're already kind of doing cool fun shenanigans with the Metal Gurumon combo that you've all seen kind of a million times at this point. But with Aerophiedramon, if you end up having a Davis and Metal Gurumon in play, if you have like a Metal Gurumon in your raising area, for example, you can bring it up, swing with it, pop out the Gurumon, untap the Metal Gurumon, attack again, bring out another level 4 or less. Well, likely you'd be the level 3 in this case because you popped out the Gurumon. And then if you have an Aerophiedramon at 10, you can spend the 3 that you got at the start of your turn, put it on top of the Gurumon, unsuspend the Metal Gurumon one more time, and attack again. Now, keep in mind, this level of like 1-2 punch attacking is not dissimilar to what you'd see in the current format now with like Imperial Dramon and Allforce. It is not nearly as powerful or as strong, but in terms of what it can do in a Blue Omnimon deck specifically, I feel is very, very powerful and it is worth its inclusion. It's also good to talk about its inheritable, where it's if a Digimon becomes unsuspended during your main phase, it actually gains jamming. So if you actually had this under your Metal Gurumon, you could actually give your Metal Gurumon jamming. And another reason why this is very powerful is that if it's under an Omnimon, who's generally going to be attacking twice with its own effect, on the first swing, you bounce back your level 6, it becomes unsuspended, Aerophiedramon triggers, and it gets jamming. And this is very powerful because now we're in a format where there's multiple Omnimons kicking around. We now have Alter S as well, and that's an extra potential to hit a 15k body depending on the matchup. So to give your Omnimon jamming, which you wouldn't think it would need jamming because it's so big, it actually becomes somewhat relevant. It also gives Metal Gurumon jamming, which is very powerful because now we're in a format where a lot more top-end megas are 12k. We have like Blitz Greymon has entered the fray, Crest Gurumon, Craniumon. All of those can be hiding in your opponent's security. Even Shine Greymon, who is only 11, but that still ties with Metal Gurumon, so jamming would allow him to bypass that. So all very powerful level 6s that have kind of entered the format automatically. That Metal Gurumon was already a risk while swinging with it as it is in 1.0 format, and now going into 1.5, it's even a bigger risk. So having that ability to gain jamming is kind of good and allows to kind of protect your investment. So moving on to the last of the ultimates, we have Shikuamon. And Shikuamon is here because if you'll notice, we're not playing Volcanic Dramon anymore. So Shikuamon is in here to help us taper down the Rookie Rush matchup, which we're expecting a lot of because they become a lot more powerful in 1.5. And it's also good to taper down different matchups just in terms of how your opponent sets up their board. Because Shikuamon can evolve on top of a blue or a yellow Digimon for 3, so we can put it on top of any one of our champions, or we can hardcast it for 8. And what it does is that during our opponent's turn, if our opponent has any Digimon without any Digivolution sources, they actually gain security attack -1, which means that, especially in the Rookie Rush matchup, for example, unless they're Digivolving into their champions or they're bringing something up from the raising area that has a Digi-Egg as a source, anything that they hard play from their hand is incapable of attacking your security. So that rush strategy kind of goes down the toilet. Shikuamon's also very powerful because it also is treated as a blue card. So even once we're done kind of using its stun effect, we can actually just evolve over top of it into one of our megas, which is super powerful. Moving on to our Mega lineup, Plesiomon and Metal Gurumon are exactly the same, exact same ratios. We've cut Omnimon down to 3 in this instance. This is just to kind of make room for some of the new cards, especially Davis. Most of the time in the Blue Omni, with your standard lineup, like we can see the ratios here have basically not changed. We still play the 14 rookies, the 11 champions, 9 ultimates, and the 7 megas. And then usually your last point was like you had Volcanic Dramon, and then you had basically room for either one tech or you played the 4th Omni. So normally people would kind of drop the 4th Omni for something like a Cockness Breath, for example. In this case, I took both the minus Omni slot and the tech slot to put in the double Davis. And yeah, so that's it for the deck. Onto the matchups. So round 1 we played, this is only like a 9-man tournament, so to say that I got, first place in my first 1.5 tournament, ooh, Blue Omni undefeated, I'm not, I'm kind of lying if I tell you that this is like the best deck or that you should take this list as gospel. Please don't. But for what it is, I think it's still very fun. And for what I was able to kind of transform it into with new cards, I'm very proud of myself. But yeah, so our round 1 was Shine Greymon. And unfortunately, we were able to kind of swing in super, super early to kind of take out our opponent's security very early on. So that way, by the time they did get to Kari, it was a little bit too late. So that was the game 1. And then game 2... our opponent was just digging for a shine and he just could not find it. He ended up landing on a Kentaro spawn pretty early on in the game that kind of stunned us for a little bit. But we ended up drawing Omnimon back-to-back off of going up into our level 6s. So we were able to kind of slow down all of his level 5 stacks that he would have turned into a Shine Greymon. So we never actually got an opportunity to put it on the table. Going into round 2, we played Red Omni. Again, kind of similar strategy. We just kind of kept getting into the security very quickly and turboing into our Metal Garurumon stack with the Garurumon and the Aerovidramon as the inheritables. With another Aerovidramon in hand, so we could pull up that 3-attack combo that I talked about earlier. And giving the Metal Garurumon jamming was actually very, very impactful because we were able to kind of survive going through a Blitzgramon hit, which was really nice. And then the next game, our opponent just didn't draw very well. Pretty much Brick had to play an ultimate early on, turn 1, and just kind of gave us a lot of memory to work with right out of the gate. Round 3, we played Rookie Rush, and then we actually finished the game 2-1, so this is actually our closest match of the day. And when I say close, it was really close. We kind of won by the skin of our teeth. Shakuamon definitely put in a lot of work in this matchup, and we just sat on him for turn after turn after turn, and slowly built up, our blockers and stuff like that, and was able to kind of eke out the win against Rookie Rush by playing around, cards in their security. And this actually had a really good matchup against Rookie Rush for being against Puppetmon specifically. Because if we had Davis on board and they used Puppetmon against us, if we actually had a champion to play, we could evolve into Aerovidramon and then just kind of untap anyone on the field that we chose. If we ended up untapping the Aerovidramon himself, then we could put another Mega on top and just keep swinging, which was actually really cool. On top of the Garurumon that we already played to kind of counteract Puppetmon. So every time our opponent dropped Puppetmon on us, we generally always had the out, and it never was really that impactful or that much of a nuisance to us, which is really cool. But yeah, as you can tell from the tournament report, a lot of my wins came from my opponent not drawing well and not being able to play. If they were able to play, would my tournament experience have gone a little bit differently? Would this deck have performed nearly as well as I think it did? I don't know, but I plan on taking this into other tournaments to kind of keep testing and keep experimenting with this formula to see if Blue Omni is still a potential contender in 1.5, and if so, maybe we can put it on the map. But until we get the rest of our 1.5 boxes, this is what we will be rocking. And yeah, so I'm super happy. Like I said, I never thought I'd go back to Blue Omni after 1.0, but now that I get to draw kind of new cards and kind of try new combos and kind of try new strategies with the deck, and it's kind of a bit more refreshed, which is really cool. Yeah, and just circle around the WVMon real quick, just talking about all this unsuspension stuff. WVMon gives us a plus 1,000 boost if something becomes unsuspended in the main phase. I said I was going to come back to it and I forgot about it. So there we go. We've gone full circle. WVMon done. So yeah, this has been Mike, AKA Synaku from Overground. If you have any questions about the deck, feel free to leave a comment. If you like what you see, please consider liking the video. And if you like what we do with the channel, please consider subscribing. We're trying to hit 400 by the end of March. We're about 1/3 of the way there. So if you can help us reach our goal, we will be greatly appreciative. So thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you in the next one.